it's like Omer today, so I thought just, I was thinking this morning as I woke up out of bed that maybe, perhaps many of you are not familiar with the Zohar. I could say I'm also not familiar with the Zohar, but it's sometimes important to have a little background, just so we know who's who and what's what. And a day like Omer, where we celebrate the Yom HaDehilula of Rav Shimon ben Yochai, and he is the author of the Zohar, I thought I'd just give you a little background. And it's actually something which is requires a little bit shrouded in mystery, because unlike any other chelik of Torah that we have, which is very clear how it came down, you know, you have the Torah was given Har Sinai, and then you have all the Mesul Yeshua, Yeshua the Canaan, Anshe Knesset Agdola, and then you have the Anshe Knesset Agdola, which taught it to the Tanoim, all Talmidim, the Rambam writes of Shimon ben Shetach, and so forth and so on. The Messiah is very clearly handed down to the Tanoim, and then we have Rabbi Akiva, which we mentioned yesterday, Rabbi Akiva, who taught it to his 5 Talmidim, the Torah Shel Baal Peh, and that's the way we have it today, till the Gemara was written by the Amoraim, and then we have the Gaonim. You have first Rabbanim Basroi, then the Gaonim, and this went to the down to the Rishonim, Achronim, until we have today exactly where it came about. Which, by the way, on a sidebar, I would be interested in giving such a share on history. I think it's something which people are missing. They don't understand the basics of the history of the who's who in the thing.
I'm in. That would be fabulous.
With handouts. Time and place for itself. But I think it's something which people should know. You know, you learn Rishonim, you learn Sfarim, you should know exactly what's going on here.
Exactly.
You know, you open a Gemara, you should know like what's in the front, what's in the back, what's happening. And it gives also a little bit of a understanding of where we come from. But in any case, it's pretty more or less straightforward. When it comes to the Zohar, now we know Reb Shimon ben Yochai was in the Myra for 12 years, and in the Myra he
what's Myra?
In the cave. He was in the cave. He was running away from the Romans. The Gemara says in Maisa there were 3. The Gemara says a story like this: Reb Shimon and Reb Yehuda by Eloi, Reb Yosi, and Reb Shimon were sitting around and talking. This was in times of the Romans. Reb Yehuda by Eloi said, "How wonderful this nation is that they build these bathhouses and roads and everything that we could enjoy, we could appreciate." And Reb Yosi was shasak, he was quiet. And Reb Shimon ben Yochai said, "They do it for themselves. They make the bathhouses so they can have zoynes, and they do all for their own physical pleasure." And somehow, and there was this fellow Yehuda ben Gerim who repeated this over to somebody. Rashi says his father, his Rebbe, somebody repeated. He heard it and repeated it over to somebody, and it ended up getting out to the next one. The next one ended up the Roman government heard about it. They said Yehuda that praised us should be the Rosh HaMedavim. He's called the Rosh HaMedavim B'Kol Makom. He was the speaker of the house, so to say. He was the first one to speak. And Rabbi Yossi was Shosek, had to go to Tzipori. He was going to Tzipori. That's where Rabbi Yossi ended up living. Rabbi Yossi was Tzipori.
He was exiled.
And Rabbi Shimon was Nechlev Lamisa. He had to be killed. So he ran and hid out in the base of Medrash. And they sent him food. But then they said, you know what? Woman, this is a Lashon Gemara. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai said to his son, Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Shimon, women, they're fickle, and the government's going to get them and torture them and find out where we are. So they went to hide. And they hid in a mire in a cave. Some say the same cave as Orion over here. In a cave. And so they remained unclothed, basically. They took off their clothing and they went under the dirt, and they only put on the clothing for davening. Otherwise they stayed underneath, and they Shemer Hanes, there was a carob tree which grew, and a spring which came, which they ate and drank from that entire time. And the Smaisa goes on. Now, what exactly happened in that cave, the Gemara doesn't say. Okay, but when he came out, the Gemara says that when Pinchas ben Yair used to when Shimon Yochai used to say something, when Pinchas ben Yair used to give him I forget what it said, maybe 7 answers or something. And that was the opposite. After he came out, when the Pinchas ben Yair said something, Shimon Yochai was able to give him many more kashas and truths on that. So he came out very great. So that's clear in the Gemara. But what ended up happening was like this. Many years later, in the times of the Rishonim first. Now, while the Torah HaKabbalah was always handed over from mouth to mouth, and Shimon Yochai's Talmud was about Abba, it was always handed from mouth to mouth, and there were different Rishonim. We have Mechunya ben Hakana. There's a sefer called Hakana, which I have at home, Sefer Hakana, which is a well-known Kabbalah sefer, which I can't read 2 lines of it, but it's well-known. And people have learned it throughout the generations, and then there are many others that have been written, which the Rishonim had, and then going down, you had Rabbi Yitzchak Sagi Noar, who was well known as blind, or was blind, the son-in-law of the Ravid, and so on. There were people that the Shalshelos HaKabbalah went through, but in the times of the Ramban, there was someone, I believe it was Moshe Diloin, who I think the story goes he passed away, and they found his wife took out the sefer and said, "This is what he learned from. This is from Rav Shimon ben Yochai." And this was called a Zohar. How it came about, a lot of different stories. It's that, but there's a sefer HaZohar, which was hidden for many, many years. Nobody had it, and now they found it all of a sudden. In the times of Rishonim, this is the Zohar we have. So you can imagine the validity of it was greatly debated. But nonetheless,
this Zohar covers what? It covers Chamushi Chamshei Torah, or it covers?
It's based on, there's different parts of the Zohar. It's based on the Chamushi Chamshei Torah, parts of it.
What is it? What are you guys saying? I don't understand what you just said.
What part of the Torah is the Zohar covering?
Okay.
The Zohar is based on the Chumash.
Okay.
But it's a Zohar. And it came out in the times of and basically in the times of Rishonim it first came out. This is many, many years later after it was officially written. Now you have some from a Tana, you can imagine, and this Torah HaKabbalah, it's all different, and there were different parts of the Zohar, the Durabah, the Zuta, and it was more or less, even though it was there was a controversy among its how it came about, it was more or less accepted. There were those that didn't accept it. Jumping forward a number of years now, just to we should appreciate these. A lot of these things were already out by heart. They knew it. They knew, the great people knew a lot of these things by heart. So they were just things that were more clarified and extra things that were there. But a lot of the things they knew, and one of the greatest, the first phase we'll call the first phase of what we call the Skalos of Torah HaKabbalah, the first phase of it lasted until the Torah of the Ramak. The Ramak, Rav Moshe Kodiva, has a lot of Sfarim that are written on the basis of Kabbalah, Pardes Rimonim, all kinds of Sfarim, the Pardes he has many Sfarim that are out, and he sort of ended the first phase of Kabbalah.
What does that mean?
That means that after him came the Arizal.
So when was the Ramak?
Ramak was right before, at the same time as the Arizal. It was Nifton, the Arizal sort of took over.
17th century?
Ramak was in the 10th century.
Earlier. No, in the 1500s.
I've
It was in the 1500s.
1500.
lost the order.
The Ramak.
I lost the order. So it started with who was it that brought the Zohar?
The Zohar came around. Moshe Diloin was the one that held it, but it came out during that time, in times of the Rishonim.
But where did it come from? Who wrote it?
That's the question. Rav Shimon Yochai wrote it. He didn't write it, but he said it. Rav Abba's Talmud maybe wrote it. His Talmud wrote it, but it was written. It's all about Rav Shimon Yochai and his memoirs.
Do we believe this came from Har Sinai or no?
Sure came from Har Sinai because.
Did you say sure it came from?
For sure.
Okay.
Because every part of Torah came from Har Sinai, but it was given over by word of mouth. Just like the Gemara wasn't written down till much later, so to this wasn't written down. It was word of mouth. A lot came from Elyonavi, which was also initially from Har Sinai. Elyon taught Shimon Yochai.
So where did Shimon Yochai get it from? Israeli?
That's the big question. From
Because
Eliyahu, you got from Eliyahu, you got some from his Rabbeim, yeah.
Like you said, the lineage, this is so different, the lineage is not there.
Very different. It's very different.
Well, he didn't write the Zohar.
And the Chiddush of the Kabbalah, of the Torah HaKabbalah, according to the Kabbalist approach, it actually defies, I mentioned yesterday, it defies the sense of the Mesiras HaTorah. In other words, the Mesiras HaTorah, we say, sort of gets lower. In other words, we're nowhere as great as the people from the generations before us and then the generations before them. And so, in other words, the regular Mesiras HaTorah, the Hasidah was given the whole Torah, and everybody knew everything. And we know a lot less now, as it goes down. But we try our hardest. But the scholars of Torah Kabbalah almost works the other way, in a sense, that it first came out in the times of the Rishonim fully, and then Ramak, and then came the Arizal, who revealed a much more deeper level of the Zohar and explained a lot more than was ever understood. And it was, by the way, the whole Arizal's giving over of his Torah was within 18 months.
Wow.
So I just want to clarify this.
Everything we have from Arizal, which is most of the Kabbalah today, was given over to Chaim Vital in a period of time of 18 months. And that just gives you an idea of, besides how great these people were, but how L'mayla Miderech HaTeva, well, I guess the whole Torah was given on Hasidai one day, but still, it's
Moshe to Moshe Rabbeinu.
yeah, but still,
The Arizal was a very young man when he passed away.
yeah.
He was in 40, something like that?
Maybe opinion's 33.
So it would it be incorrect to say that Reb Shimon Bar Yochai wrote the Zohar as opposed to it had been transmitted to him and then he wrote it down? In other words, it would, to say it more accurately, it would be incorrect to say that he was the author of the Zohar. That can't be. He couldn't have been because it was transmitted from Har Sinai.
Yeah, no, but
What's
still.
the proper way of referring to it then?
Yeah, I mean, right. The Gemara was compiled by Rav Ashi and Ravina. I mean, so he was the
Mechaber.
yeah, he was the Mechaber. He wrote it. Yeah. He wrote it. He said it over, and they wrote it down. Yeah.
So, what should
The
we
way
say?
the way it's given over, he was the one that
Okay, but they're not his original
articulated
thoughts
it.
because they came
He's
from
the
Har
one that
Sinai.
articulated it and put it down, that we could have it for future generations.
But they're not his original thoughts. They can't be. They had to come from Har Sinai, no?
Okay, the whole Torah is like that. I don't know why.
Okay, but I
don't know why you're getting caught up on this. If a guy writes a sefer,
Because for 25 years I hear that Reb Shimon wrote the Zohar, it implies that it's their original thoughts. They're not original thoughts.
No, Kabbalah itself means transmission.
Right, it was transmitted to him
Right, yeah.
orally, and he put it down to paper.
Yeah, you got it right. That's
Okay,
exactly
that's what I
right.
need. It's my head, the way my mind
That's
works.
exactly
Is
right.
Kabbalah and
It's good
Zohar
head.
interchangeable? Like Kabbalah is Zohar?
Zohar,
Or-
once the Zohar came out, that sort of took over the entire Kabbalah. In other words, everything was in there.
The Kabbalah, the concept of Kabbalah goes well beyond the Zohar.
Well, at the end of the day, it doesn't, because everything is in there. Everything is in there, so it doesn't really. In other words, while everything, it's like the Gemara. While everything Torah Shabbat Peh was there before the Gemara came around, but once the Gemara was written, there was nothing that anything beyond the pale of the Gemara is not included. Everything has to be in there.
Does the Zohar have
So-
more than Kabbalah?
That's what happens. In other words, once Ravina Rav Ashi wrote down the Gemara, so it had to be incorporated into there. Otherwise, it was maybe an opinion that wasn't counted or whatever it may be. So it's always the same thing. Once it's out, that's the way it is. So it sort of came out slowly, and then it came around much later. Obviously, the Rishonim were probably talking the Rabbans probably in the 1200s. Talking the Zohar came out. Talking about the 1500s, you had the Arizal, who was Megala, a whole new, and it's a whole story by itself. The Arizal is something which is by itself, but the Arizal was Megala, a deeper understanding and everything was going on.
How is that possible? I mean, the Rishonim didn't know what he knew? Like, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, it's crazy. Doesn't make any sense. I mean,
It's the simplistic answer to that question is that this is a simplistic answer, but I don't want to get caught up on this now because. But the simplistic answer to this question is that there's understanding that there's having the klolim, and then there's delving into the prate pratim, to the details.
And that's what he did.
So, right, so everything that he did was not outside what was given over from the Rishonim beforehand.
But
It was
much
within the
deeper.
concept. I could say a word. Now you got to explain what that means and how. There's depth and depths and depths, and it keeps on going. It's like learning Gemara. You could have the words of the Gemara, but if you plumbed it and understand it well, you could go on a whole day learning one line of Gemara. So give it like that. Okay. Now after the Arizal, just to understand this, it wasn't over yet.
The real contribution of the Arizal was that he popularized and made available to a broader audience the Kabbalah.
No. The Arizal actually revealed concepts of Kabbalah which were not understood by the previous generations. And talking about great, great people, we wrote Svarim on top of Svarim to the point where people felt that he was actually doing different than his Rebbe, but at that time they finally understood that it was not different, it was just a deeper understanding and things that were not readily available to understand by the previous generations. So he let that know. Now, without getting to the details exactly what was before, what was after, but this was the Arizal's. For those that learn Kabbalah, the spheres were known before, but the Petzufim was something that the Arizal sort of articulated and brought about. And there were many different things that he expanded on, and it changed the whole picture, basically. And after post-Arizal times, the Kabbalah is learned very differently. And to the point that afterwards, after him, it sort of went under a little bit. But then, there were times where it came out. Now, once you had Kabbalah out, it always started coming out, the concept of false Mashiachs, you can imagine. Shabsai Tzvidis came out, he's a big Kabbalist, so to say, and all these problems sort of, came out. But at the end of the day, the people, the main players in the lineage of Kabbalah, just to get us through. So you heard it once, and then one day, we can go back to these people. But you have someone called the Ramchal. Many of you have heard. The Ramchal sort of explained it more. He had one way. Ramchal was a tremendously great person. We all know him from Mesilas Yesharim. But he lived to 40, not past. So he went to Eretz Yisrael and he passed away there. They all ran after him and forced him not to write Svarim. They thought that he was going to be the next Shabsai Tzvi. He was a great man.
What name is this again?
The Ramchal. Reb Moshe Chaim Luzzatto.
When
he was probably in the end of the 1600s, probably in the 1600s, early 1700s. So he was a great man. But he wrote many Sfarim, which a lot of them came out later, but they banned him from writing Sfarim. They banned him from writing Sfarim, and he accepted on himself he's not going to write any more Sfarim until he goes to Eretz Yisrael, until he's 40. Yeah, and but nonetheless persevered his Sfarim. That was one angle, and the literature world sort of follows his derech of learning it. Then there was the Rashash. Rabbi, he was someone who also added on certain angles of Kabbalah that revealed, and the Sfardim, the sort of Siddur Rashash and all this, the Sfardim go very heavily on his Mahalach, which is probably more in line going from the Arizal down, and from the Rashash, the Hasidim took that angle also. So you had and the truth is, there are Sfarim that still said the Tshuva Miyava, there's the Talmud of Neb Yehuda that people say the Sefer Zohar was so Kaddish. The Gemara, he says the Gemara is more Kaddish because that we know how it came from the Zohar. We don't know how it came from. There were those, but after the Baal Shem Tov and the Goin, the Vilna Goin, once they both accepted it, that basically ended the dispute because that covered everybody. You have the Baal Shem Tov for the Hasidim, and you have the Goin for the Litvish, and you have the Sfardim always accepted it. They had the Rishash. So then the Zohar was undisputed, totally, completely. But the Hasidim all went with the derech of the Rishash and the Baal Shem Tov, which brought Baal Shem Tov. What he did was he brought the Kabbalah more down to the he brought it down to the masses in a way that you were able to do your avodas Hashem al derech HaKabbalah. You're able to relate to it more, and he sort of brought it down that way. That was the Hasidim's mahalach. They took the Kabbalah and sort of brought it down into your everyday life, and you have a more of a Musar take on I won't call it Musar, but that kind of approach on the Kabbalah, and that's what the Hasidim really accomplished. Whereas the Litvish world didn't really accept that. They felt that that Kabbalah should remain hidden, but just give a little background of where it comes from. So, but this is something which they believe that the Torah Kabbalah comes more and more ready available until the coming of Mashiach, which actually happened. It comes more and more out until the point of Mashiach, when it will be out totally, and everybody will understand it. So, when it says that Mashiach will come when it becomes when the Kabbalah is out in the world, they believe in this very strongly. Therefore, some even go out to try to spread Kabbalah because they believe this way to bringing Mashiach. I wouldn't go there. I'm just giving you a little bit of background. But it's it's something which I thought I'd share with you. Give you a little.
That's amazing.
A little background on the without actually going into the basis of the limit of Kabbalah, but that's something.
So the Litvaks now agree, just like see them in the authenticity
Everybody.
of it, but we believe to conceal it more.
Machlokes,
Although more of it's coming out. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
So, when I was still living in Williamsburg, my mother had a sefer in the house, which I lost, and then I found it again in the Swarm store. It's called Muziel HaMalach. So it's supposed to be like a segula to have it in the house. I looked at it a couple of times. I have no idea what's fine. They have all these weird diagrams in there. I didn't know better. I think it was witchcraft.
That's a school for fire insurance.
What's that?
The fire insurance. It's a school not to have. The reason people hold it in their house, it's a school against fires.
That inspires?
Fires.
Fire prevention.
Fire
Fire
prevention.
That's what that is?
That's why people have it in their house.
It certainly doesn't have- it's certainly
translates-
It's not what it is. That's not what it is. But the reason why people hold it in their house is for
It's
that.
clearly not a segula to improve your hearing. That I can see.
What?
What?
Or replace the batteries anyway.
Yeah, but supposedly
Fire
it was
extinguisher.
it's Malach Ruziel that gave it to
Adam
Adam
Rishon, that's correct. Right. So,
Don't stop.
He made the first fire on Motzei Shabbos.
Right, that's right. I guess he didn't know how to put it out afterwards.
He did it without a lighter.
How do you know? Were you there?
He's older than
I can't say.
He's older than look. You look good.
That's the way I comb my hair.
okay, so going back a little bit to Bas B'cholov here.
Well, that's it.
That's it.
I wanted more. That's good.
I'll go over the
One
cover.
Very
more.
interesting.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you to repeat what he said back.
No problem.
Well, I think a share in history would be very important. But okay, so we spoke about last week Bas B'cholov a little bit, different ways of cooking. Just a few little points on that. I'll move over to the next thing. Yes. Okay. So just a point. So we spoke about cheeseburgers and cooking them, baking them. So just even though we said at the end of the day that basar tameh, a non-kosher animal doesn't have a problem with b'cholov, and therefore you're allowed to cook it. But
I'm sorry, did you just say a non-kosher animal, you don't have a problem?
there's no problem cooking with milk. There's no issue, right? As we said last week.
I mean, forgetting hana, but you can't eat a non-kosher
You
animal.
can't eat a non-kosher animal, but if the question is if you're working in a restaurant, are you allowed to cook
Oh,
it
now
with
I
milk?
understand where you're going.
So, right, so that's what I was going to point out. This is all Midaraisa we
The colour's
discussed.
very maple these days.
Rabbanan is Pnei Maris Ayin, you can't actually cook that. Now,
Didn't we learn that you could do a deer burger and a moose burger?
deers are kosher animals.
Yeah, if it was shechted, I understood, you could cook it with milk.
It's a chaya. It's not.
Because it's a chaya, right? Correct, you are. It's a chaya.
Because
Right,
I
you're
told my
correct,
wife
right.
we got to get 4 set of dishes and another kitchen.
Oh, so the question, that's a question. So chaya, deer and chicken, for that matter, which is only asim midrabanan, basim b'chalav. So minatori, you're allowed to cook it and you're allowed to have enough of it. So the question is, are you allowed to do that lechatchila? Are you allowed to lechatchila go and cook it, or is this midaraisi for sure allowed? The question is lechatchila, are you allowed to go around and do it? So there seems to be machlokes in that. If there's a maris ayin, Taz holds there's a maris ayin, but others holds that there's no maris ayin. People clearly could see the difference, at least by oif, at least by birds, they could see the difference between that and a piece of meat. Maybe deer, there might be more maris ayin, but oif, there's no maris ayin. You could actually cook it. The shach and others hold that way. So yeah.
I apologize. I didn't understand the question. What were they asking?
Are you allowed to cook? Are you allowed to cook chicken and milk together?
Oh, I see.
You're not going to eat it. You'll feed it to the guy or somebody,
Or your dog.
or your dog.
But Maris Ayin is with Rabbanan. It's not
Right. Right. The question is the Marasayan? The rice for sure you're allowed to do it. Okay, we said there's a concept called, I'll speak about this briefly, I don't want to get too far into this, but there's a concept called Ein Bishal Achar Bishal, which you mentioned last week briefly, that once it's cooked, you could cook it again. There's a machlokes if that applies. That was by Shabbos, Hilchos Shabbos, once something is cooked and you cook it again, you're not over on B'lacha Shabbos, it's already cooked. So the question is, does that apply by Basa B'cholav? Does that apply by Basa B'cholav? Once it's cooked, would you be able to cook it again?
So in other words, you take beef that's cooked, cook it again, and put cheese on it. Are you over bas v'chalav? Is that the question?
No.
Is that the
That's
question?
also a question. That's also a question. There are two questions. One, once it's already cooked together, the basa and the chalav together, you already cooked it together.
Oh, you've cooked them together initially?
Right now you want to cook it together again. And then what you're saying is if I have meat that's already cooked, and then I want to put it together with thing, that's also machlokes. The Chasam Sofer holds, and then the craziest mash like that also, that there is basa b'chalav. Because since, even though one part was cooked, even if they both were cooked separately, but now that you're cooking it together, you're adding on something, that would be considered basa b'chalav. And but if it was already cooked together, Chasam Sofer says, but if it was already cooked with milk and I want to add more milk, that would not be basa b'chalav.
Wow.
Now, basa b'chalav has to be that. We always say that, we said last week, that you have to do both. The chalav has to go into the basa and the basa has to go into the chalav. It has to be a two-way deal in order to make basa b'chalav. So if the basa already had chalav cooked into it, already had milk cooked into it, now I have more milk I'm adding on, even though that milk didn't have basa cooked into it, but since the basa already had milk cooked into it, so I'm not adding any basa b'chalav to the meat. So there's no basa b'chalav being added to the milk.
But so what happened to the original concoction? It's still usher for you.
It's asr, but I know it's asr for me, but my cooking, the three yisurim.
You're not over on the cooking
right?
and the
Not over
second
on the
time.
cooking.
You're only going to get whipped once.
Right.
Right, for the first time. It's an interesting, odd
gonna be fun.
evaluation. It's like, okay, why we're doing it?
So there is a halacha.
This is me, I remember.
There is a halacha not to cook, not to use a non-Jewish pot, the guy's pot, because his pot has in it basar and chalav. Okay, it has in it basar and chalav, And what? Well, chazir, you're allowed to cook. The question is, am I allowed to cook? Let's say you want to cook for your nanny, and she has a pot that she uses, so which is she shouldn't be using your pot. So she has a pot which she uses, and you want to bake for her. Do a favor. You'll cook for her. You'll heat up a soup for her. The soup is a kosher soup. You pour your soup from your freezer. You put it into her pot, and you cook it. But in her pot, she has basar b'cholov in there. So the question is, am I over Isur Bishul basar b'cholov? It's actually brought down that you're not supposed to do that. But it's not so clear. It's not so clear that why you shouldn't do that exactly, because because it's already cooked, and if it's already cooked, it's already cooked in there. If it's already cooked in there, so then there's no bishul acha bishul. So you already.
Not by not.
It's not a not by not. It's not a not by not. We'll get to not by not. This is not by not, because if you have, it's not by not.
It's not.
Because not by not is the basar goes through a process before it hits the chalav, or the chalav goes through a process before it hits the basar. But if basar and chalav will cook together,
That's
it's
the
already
first
asr,
process.
and then it goes into the walls of a pot. It's like any isser that went into the walls of a pot. So that would be asr. And then the question is, would you be able to cook again with it? So that's now maybe it's not a ben yoimei and all these kind of things. There are questions about if it's not a ben yoimei. Maybe you could use it. So here we are.
Does that include an oven, cooking in an oven?
Yeah, it's over here.
And the reason I'm asking is years ago, everybody used to bring their pot to go into the baker's oven on,
An oven.
yeah.
Oven will get. An oven is not as serious. An oven is not as serious because the pot it actually cooks in.
It's a vessel.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that vessel, can it go into an oven?
Yeah. So let's find Ramah here. So Ramah actually speaks it out. But Ramah speaks it out. That's you shouldn't stoke the fire under the pot of a guy, because they sometimes cook milk and sometimes cook meat. So, but it's a chumrah. It's a chumrah. And the question really is another question. Besides bishul acha bishul, is another question. If there's an issue of cooking the blias inside a pot. In other words, if you have food inside a pot, you're cooking, that's the issue of bishul. But if you have blias inside the pot, just taste inside the walls of the pot, and you cook that, is that actually an issue of cooking basar b'chol? It's definitely not a shear, but maybe it's an issue of cooking it. So that's a machlokes. That's a shaila what the issue is. But in any case, the minhag was not to there was a chumrah not to use a goyish pot for that reason. The Shach brings us the Ches. Yeah. Yesham also lach tax there shloim kachavim, because they cook sometimes basar, sometimes chalav. So you could come to bishul basar b'chalav.
These are problems my crazy daughter, the vegan vegetarian, doesn't have.
So in any case, it's a chumrah. It's a chumrah. We declared a shayla like this. Let's say you taka have basar b'chalav soup, okay, and it was already cooked together. If you hold ein bishul acha bishul, but now it got cold. Now it's cold. And the Shabbos halacha is that if soup gets cold and you heat it up again, that is bishul acha bishul.
Because it's liquid. No?
Because it's liquid. But it's very possible that that's only by Shabbos. By basar b'chalav, where the fusion between the chalav basar and the chalav was already made through the process of bishul, it's very possible that even got cold and now I'm heating it up again. It would not be an issur necessarily of basar b'chama. So these are some, but in any case, it's not relevant to halacha l'maisa l'chumma. We don't do these things. We try to stay away. It's not so relevant for you every day. If you have a nanny in the house or something, then you have to be careful with their pots. They should have their own pots, and they should cook with their own pots, and you shouldn't heat up their food in their pots l'chatchila. Now, questions like this. Let's go to, for a moment, fish and fish and meat and fish and milk.
Milk, yeah.
Fish and milk. So fish and meat, we know that we don't eat fish and meat together, right?
Does that include
Yes.
chicken? I mean, by us it does. Was there anybody who
Yeah.
would hold that chicken doesn't count in that?
Yeah.
It does include chicken.
Yeah.
For everybody.
Maybe there's even chicken, but yeah. The issue of eating fish.
When you say chicken, you mean all poultry, kosher poultry?
Yeah, kosher.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're not going to find out that the partridge is exempt
You
or
could
something.
do, right. So there's no isser to eat anything with meat, only chalav meat. There's no isser min Torah to have fish and meat together. Just there's an isser of sakana, something called sakana. And it's considered a sakana. The fish comes from the water, and the meat comes from the land. It's these things can't mix together, and if they mix together, it brings to a sakana. Now, so that's clear, and that's a halacha we keep, and we're very makbid on it.
What's the source for that, please?
And is it a spiritual sakana or a physical sakana?
Right? It's a physical sakana.
This is hard to wrap myself around.
Is that Zohar or is that a Gemara?
No,
Gemara.
It's
no,
a
yeah, sakana.
Only for Jews, or
And
is it special for us?
that's a good question. Is it special for Jews? That's actually a very good question. It's a very good question. Because the Gemara says that the goyim that are used to eating shkotzim and masim, and they eat all these, what do they
Surf
call
and
them?
turf.
The Japanese, all the stuff they eat, shrimps and who knows what. So their body is more rough and tough. But when you have adinas hanefesh, you have people that are more sensitive, then these things could be, our souls are more sensitive. We are what we eat. That's in Chazal they have a lotion of aver machzik aver. In other words, when you eat something, it becomes part of you. So we are what we eat, and so every bout we have a neshama. We have more spiritual people, and therefore certain foods have different effects to us.
But the Gemara must say what the makor for that is. I mean, it's such a to our ear it sounds really strange.
We have a lot of things that are also sakana, which we today don't necessarily see the sakana. But Chazal answered it because of sakana. We have a lot of things like
well,
that.
maybe the Metzias is not the same anymore.
Could be. It could be, but we don't
Yeah,
change
the
it.
Gemara says that kinim are self-generated or something.
It's still true.
Head lice are
Still
they
true.
just come into existence on their own or something.
Well, you have to know what it
Which
means,
we know is not true
self-generated.
now. I mean,
We know it's not true, but the world, they say, is self-generated. You explain to me how the whole world could be self-generated and the lice can't be. The same scientists that say that the lice are not self-generated say that the entire world is self-generated. Is that correct? Yeah. They say the world came about
What?
from self-generation.
Why wouldn't the
Okay.
But we don't believe
Why would the Gemara say that?
We don't
it's-
believe it. I'm just saying, you want to take what they say, you know.
Why wouldn't the
But
Gemara?
and that's a separate point, what it means that kingdom of self-generated. But what I'm saying is, when Gemara says something else as sakana, whether a person tries it and he actually doesn't die, doesn't change the halacha that we still keep it al sakana.
Why wouldn't
We do a lot of things al sakana, but this was accepted totally in all the generations, and it's not done. Now the question, you know what?
I was going to say, why wouldn't Gemara, how they say, it's a sakana, so be very careful to remove all the bones before you eat it, because anytime I don't understand the combination. Anytime you eat fish on its own, it's a sakana.
Why is it sakana?
Bones.
Because you got the bones.
Don't eat the bones. Who asked you to eat the bones?
So why shouldn't you be able
We're
to eat the
talking
two
about
together?
eating the meat of the fish.
How
not
about
the
eating a
bones.
rib steak? It's a sakana, because if you eat the bone, you'll die.
Wh- wh-
You'll
wh-
scrape your
Where are you going with
esophagus.
this?
I don't understand.
This is poison. Eating meat and milk together. Eating meat and fish to cook together.
Oh.
We consider as poison.
It's not a danger because of the bones.
I didn't say anything about bones.
I'm asking.
Oh, no.
I'm an inquisitive mind.
Itself, we consider a danger.
But we don't know why, and we're not going to ask why. We're just going to just go weiter and trust that the Masorah should be trusted.
Yeah, yes, that's yeah.
Maybe I
Now-
should excuse myself asking too many questions.
Yeah, you can ask a question. I'm just saying that it's one of the things we have to
You
accept.
can't eat boneless fish
Oh.
and boneless chicken together.
Okay,
Can eat the
now
feathers?
That's why I always thought it
the
was.
question is like this: the question where maybe all your concerns come into play would be with fish and milk. The Beis Yosef brings down such a lashon that you shouldn't eat fish and milk together. And the Taz in the Shach says it's a toy cipher. It's a mistake in the language. It should have said fish and meat, and instead it said cholov. It's a printer's mistake, typo. Yeah, typo. But there are those that want to say, no, it wasn't a typo.
Uh-oh.
That is, there is a sakana of eating. Okay, the Knesset G'dayla writes this. Kav Chaim brings down that there is a sakana actually eating fish and milk cooked together also. And it brings tsaras. Okay? It brings leprosy. That's a cause of leprosy.
That's cooked
No more
Cooked together.
pancakes and nuts.
What?
No more pancakes and nuts.
Cooked together. Hold on. So for the same reason, because a fish is made out of as a product of the water, and this is a product of the land. I don't know exactly what that means, but
Are you saying leprosy or
leprosy?
source?
What's tsaras?
No,
Leprosy.
because,
Yeah, but you said sarah, so...
So
No,
okay, let me just get through this. So that's what Rabbeinu Bechaya brings down. Yeah, it brings down. So
Whatever.
the minig of Bnei Sfard, and he's Sfardim here.
my
Who
enunciation.
said this Sfardim here? Sfardim. Sfardim are very careful not to eat milk cooked with fish together because of this.
Really?
Yes.
I've never heard this.
Yes.
Really? I've never heard this.
I've seen it actually.
So there goes your lox and bagel.
Well, actually, that's not your cooking.
Cooking.
So hold on.
Cooking.
Cooking together.
No,
So
we're not talking about eating together, just cooking together.
right.
They don't eat it together either. You don't.
Imagine no lox.
I think they don't eat it together.
Right. I've been hundreds
But
of
if you
don't
cook
have
them
bagels,
separately and
lox,
put them on
and
top,
Right.
would that you think they would have an issue with that?
Now,
Skillet?
he brings down here from Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, believe it or not,
Oh, shit.
he was noig not to eat fish with cheese. He says they were noig in his house like that. But he says, people asked him, he says this minig was not muskim, was not accepted by most people. Therefore, unless you have a specific Messiah like that, there's no reason to keep it. So even those that are machmir not to cook it together, but that's cooking it together. But eating it, having fish and having lasagna or other cheese items, hot cheese items even on the plate, we're not so concerned about. It's very cliche, we're not so concerned about these things. So this is only a questionable minhag. Not questionable minhag. It's a machlokes exactly the source of it's not eating fish and milk together, cooked together, but we don't take that too far. We don't take that so far, and we allow it on the same plate. We allow it to eat it together. We just don't actually cook it together. And that most people, I think, do not actually cook fish and cheese and fish together. But if it was cooked by the Evid, it's mutter. It's mutter. But again, that's what's smart. I mean, even Ashkenazim, many people, it's sort of carried over. Many people don't actually do that, but the halacha, it's mutter. It's actually mutter even to cook. I mean, according to the Ashkenazim, most people hold that it's mutter to actually cook it together. But there is a pretty strong minhag that people don't actually cook it together. But beyond that, they do.
How about cooking fish in a milchik kli? Is that an issue?
Right. So that's actually a good question. So most people are not makbid on that. You can cook fish in a milk, though there used to be something called a fish pot. That's why they had a fish pot. The fish pot. There was nothing today. There are people that have milk like a kalim, flesh like a kalim, and there's a new thing called power of a kalim. They used to never have power of a kalim. You either use your milk like a kli or you use your flesh like a kli. But they always had something called a fish pot. And the fish pot is something which was only cooked, the gefilte fish, for Shabbos. That was cooked in the fish pot. And, yeah.
So
And,
a tuna
this
melt-
was
a
the
tuna
reason
melt
not to have
sandwich
milk
is
and
not
not
a
to have
problem.
meat. What?
A tuna melt sandwich is not a
Like fettuccine
problem.
alfredo?
Who?
Tuna melt,
You've never
Tuna
had
melt.
fettuccine
What's
So
alfredo?
you tuna fish sandwich and you melt some
Cheese on top.
cheese on it.
You never heard of this?
I never heard of it.
Where have you been,
I
oh?
just wanna hear this. So Moshe Uncle's
What does
asking
it
if
taste
that,
like?
It's pretty good, not good.
that's why people
They sort, of
make
like
it.
they sort of toast it. It's like a grilled.
tuna.
It's true. I mean, we both come from Brooklyn, so we've never heard of this.
I've never heard of
But I
this.
think they must have. They have it there now. So I was just in a kosher restaurant in Flatbush a couple of weeks ago, and I had a tuna melt sandwich.
Ah.
So I assume it's okay. But
Yeah, so again, for the Ashkenazim, it's mutter. Sfardim probably would stay away from it because it's hot. I guess to melt it, they may have to. It's
Right, they put it in a
The
toaster oven.
Sfardim would stay away from it.
There's also fettuccine alfredo with lox, which is crazy.
What is it?
Fettuccine alfredo, it's like a
English.
It's a
like a
noodle
pasta
dish, noodle
with
dish.
cream
It's a
sauce, with a cream sauce with bits of smoked salmon.
Yeah,
on it.
but that's not cooked.
And there's
It's not cooked
cheese.
together.
It's not cooked
probably.
together.
Yeah,
Put it in.
the sauce
Yes.
must be. The
Yes,
sauce
it
must
is.
be.
Depends who's making it.
That's the way I cook
The
it.
way I see it, yeah.
And it's phenomenal. But
Okay, I hope I didn't ruin anyone's appetite over here.
No, but you ruined our menu.
On the contrary,
No, for
I'm starting
Ashkenazim, it's
to
fine.
oversell.
Now,
I'd like to know why you know.
Minig b'nei Ashkenaz is to be matter, milk and fish together, and just meat and fish we keep separate. Now, we keep separate meat and fish to the degree we don't put it on the same plate together at all. And that's why many, as Michael could attest to, that in Williamsburg, everybody has brunfin between the,
What's that, Brent?
they have a l'chaim between the fish and the,
Ah.
and the,
Okay, question.
and the meat Shabbos afternoon, because or Friday night, whenever they have gefilte fish, and then you have meat. So you take they take something in between
The
to rinse out
rinse.
your mouth because we want to have a separation between the that's where it comes from.
I'm sitting at the table in a Sephardic home. They serve the fish. They don't change, you get one fork. They don't change the fork.
They don't. That I never saw.
That's,
I
They're
never
not
saw
real
that.
Sephardim. I wouldn't go back there.
I guess,
I never saw.
my daughter married.
We're very annoying not to have the same things for fish and for
Right, you take everything off.
to wash it. and clean
No,
it.
you get a different, like they'll take the dish away, but
Yeah,
you still
yeah.
keep the utensils.
Ah. Okay.
No.
Now,
this-
there are things that have fish. There are things that have products of fish and vitamins and things like that. It's very common today. Omega, I don't know what 3.
Omega-3.
Right.
They have. Gelatin, I think gelatin from fish and things like that. Now, I'm not talking about the kashrus issue, what kind of fish they get it from. That has to, that's a different discussion. But that would not makbid on shach sakana of having that with a meat and other things. The derivatives were not so machmir. So it doesn't, have the same level as thing, but there is such a kind of. Okay, talking about keeping it separate. So, so makbid also not to cook it in the same oven at the same time. So we don't cook the fish and the meat together, right, at the same time. You don't bake it together at the same time in the same oven. You do it one after the next, you could do it, but at the same time, to put it in the same oven, we don't generally do it. And if you need to, you double wrap it. You double wrap it, so then...
What about a fish on a barbecue? That'd be a fleshy barbecue?
That's actually a very, very good question. I was hoping nobody would ask that question.
Should we turn the rewind and eliminate?
Or I could leave.
That's an excellent question, because a lot of people do have that in the summer, and they want to barbecue their salmon,
Right.
and they only have one barbecue grill, and I don't know what to answer. I don't know what to
Are
answer.
you
If
talking
it's a dirty barbecue and it has meat on it, so then you're cooking
People tend to wrap.
fish. You're
people
roasting fish on a meat barbecue.
People will double wrap in
Double
tinfoil.
wrap it in foil,
That's what-
and it
that's what
doesn't
I've seen.
matter.
Double wrapping the fish in tinfoil, then they put it on.
Yeah,
Then what
it
happens?
doesn't cook the same.
Then it cooks there.
It gets through. It
The heat
burns
gets through.
The heat gets through, but it
Heat-
doesn't burn through.
Doesn't burn through.
Okay, Erech
There you
Harabi.
go.
That would be a svara. That would be a svara.
That's the way we do it.
What's the
You
benefit
don't
then?
put fish directly on a flame.
What's the benefit?
No,
No, you put it on the grill.
It's just
we
cooked.
wrap it.
There's
You
no.
can put it on the grill.
You don't get
Put
the
it on
benefit
the
of
grill.
grilling.
Right.
No, you're right.
Do it in
I
the-
have
You
no-
could do
why
it in the
why do you
oven,
have to
same
wrap it?
thing.
Why, if I put a sheet of silver foil on the grill and put the fish on that, so now there's no contact between the fish and the grill, What's the problem?
Because you have the sweat.
Fleischiks in the.
You have the sweat.
The
My
smoke.
fish don't sweat.
If
Put
fleischiks
deodorant on, please.
all the fleischiks in a barbecue, like it's.
Drips on.
Does it get in? Does it get
Sure
through?
it does.
Does the schmaltz go through?
You've got the flame,
Schmaltz of the.
you got the flame,
You
then you
close the
got
lid.
these barbecue bars that have fat on them
Oh, you close the top and it
Yeah.
gets around, you say.
Yeah, sure
It's
it does.
around.
Sure
And why
it
is this is a problem because?
Well, I don't know if that's a
Right.
problem, right? If it's
Stuff
burnt
drips down
out,
from the ceiling
I
of
would
the
say like
barbecue.
this:
The
if
smoke.
you burn out the
Smoke.
barbecue
We're not worried about
beforehand.
smoke. okay.
Inside,
Are we
sure.
worried about smoke or about
Are we
smoke?
We're gonna let the
smoke.
Rush say something now.
Vapor.
Okay, no, just
He's
you
trying to
fanatics could just calm down a second. So I can hear
This
the
is
rest of
Dvorim in the Meruma Shalaylam. You know, this is something we need
It's
to
his
attack.
fault, he asked the question.
Okay, we're gonna get to smoke and the Zayah. This is a good question, but I would say just on you know, if you burn out the barbecue well, if you clean it and burn it out, so then this you know it still tastes meaty. He's the expert here,
Yeah.
expert griller here.
You'll never,
These people,
ever,
these people.
like,
You'll never get it out.
what you gotta go through to clean
never get it out.
barbecue,
You'll
may as
never
well
get
buy
it out.
another one.
You'll never get it out.
We'll never get it out.
You can, but buy another one, it's not worth the effort.
No, my question is if it gets burnt out to such a degree that it's not considered busser anymore.
It'll never,
What happened?
Interesting. So you can have
It's
black
charcoal.
char, but it's not considered meat.
Right, and if you cover, so if you cover the grill, but I think he'd be right that the best thing would be to not to cover it, you know, to leave the grill open if you're gonna do that. Racist, I don't know. I never
you-
tried
if
it.
you
I don't
double
know what
wrap
I'm
it-
talking about. I have to see it.
you double wrap it, and you can either put it in
That's a
your
good
oven, or
question.
you can put it, there, it's,
Okay, as I said, I hope nobody asked that question. Got a different grill top. You can get a different grill top.
Yes. But then you have all the stuff at the bottom, all the remnant, the leftover fats from the hamburgers and steaks you
Wow,
made.
it's a serious business. Aha.
and they even have a special bar they put inside for the fats to drip on, to heat up and
Really?
add the flavor.
Okay, let's go.
That's
You
the
know, once
metal
we're in this
thing over
topic and we
the,
discussed it on
fire.
Pesach, let's go
Your
to the
little metal
ovens.
pieces.
So, you have an oven. Wait, it's late. You have an oven, okay, and you cook. You want to cook milchiks and fleischiks in the same oven. Is there an issue?
At the same time or different time?
Well, let's start at the same time. We go from the top to the bottom. Same time, you want to cook milchiks and fleischiks in the same oven. Okay, so what would be the problem? They're not touching each other. They're separate. They're in separate pots. Is there any issue cooking milchiks and fleischiks in the same oven?
Spill out.
My wife won't do it.
Okay, spill.
Bubbling, popping.
Bubbling. So there are two issues that we're always concerned with, and we have to see if we can get around them. The first issue is the spillage. So maybe something will spill over the top, go onto the grate or whatever you call it, and that will become now, let's say fleishik spills over, that will become fleischiks. So the question is, okay, it becomes fleischiks. Could I put a milchiga pot or a milchiga pan on my fleischiga, what do they call it?
The rack.
The rack, fleischiga rack. Is there a problem with that? Question number one.
Is there any liquid is the question.
There's no liquid. The Chayre oven is dry. There's no liquid in between. It just spilled over and burnt up. So is there any issue putting it on the racks? That would be issue number one. Issue number two is what we call zayah. You have the steam coming out of the pots. Is that an issue of mixing steams? Now I have to tell you, this is probably one of the most complicated halachas in Basa B'chalav. Is, do we consider steam an issue, or do we not consider steam an issue? When do we consider steam an issue?
Because it's not as hot a temperature. as-
Yeah, if you have, it's a hot temperature, it's in the oven. You have steam coming up and it directly hits something on top of it, we would consider that zayah. It's a machlekes hapaiskim. We consider that zayah, and that would be as if it's cooked together. But the question is, many of our ovens have vents. They all have vents. So the question is a tanur gadol, is a tanur cotton? Do we consider it the zayah to have an effect one next to another? This is a very complicated question. But lemaisa, when noyig l'chumra, we answer it that we don't cook two open pots of things that make steam in the same oven together, because we would consider it smoke together, and then it would actually mix it and consider a problem. One could argue that's if they're open. If they're both closed and covered and there's no steam coming out, that wouldn't be an issue. And that's true. So if you would have double wrap two things in the same oven, perhaps it'll be okay. If you're confident that the steam is not getting out, that would be then technically there's no issue. Okay, we'll leave it. I see it's really late. I didn't realize how late it was. We'll have to take it up next week.